Hello again and welcome. And we've got Janet Newton with us today. Janet we were just talking about how long we think the Guild has been going. It could have been up to 18 years by now. It's been a long time, and time has escaped me. So it's quite possible. I thought maybe closer to a dozen, but Janet reminded me that she retired, about then ago, and joined the group pretty soon after that. And then at one point, I know that we both attended, I think Frank Scalise's workshop series that he did, right? That's what you went to, yeah. And she's successfully written books, 6 of them, and gotten them out there. And I have yet to get one of them out there. So that just shows you what'll come out of a workshop like that. You never know. But I am going to just ask a couple of questions up front here and then let Janet tell you about her work. I was pretty curious about when she first started writing, or if she's been writing since she was a little tot, and I don't know. Some of us have. And then also, once she thinks about that and can tell us about her general writing, when she decided to do this series of books and why in Wales. So I'm going to real quick put up these. Here it is. I did select it. You ding dong. Oh, over here, share. Oh, technology.
There they are.
Yeah.
I can't see me anymore.
No, that's the problem because you're not on computer, you're on phone.
Oh, well, I don't need to see me. I know what I look like.
Yeah, you know what you look like. Well, I'm glad. I don't always know what I look like. And I will try to move this up a little here and then so you can see all of them. I've got a thing here. It says you're a former Spanish and creative writing teacher with an MA in Lit and the humanities. Your passion for British crime novels led her to set her novels in the UK. Well, we'll just let you go on from there. How's that?
That's fine.
Okay. If you need to see those again, give me a holler and I'll put them up. Okay?
Maybe at the end.
Take it away, Janet.
Okay. Well, you asked when I started writing. I have to say that some of my earliest memories were telling stories to my siblings when we slept out in the treehouse or the barn at night. And those were the Bill and Mr. Black stories, which I was probably 8 or 9 years old. They were adventure stories. Bill was the hero, Mr. Black was the villain, and my brother loved them so much that he went to my parents and asked if he could change his name to Bill, so he could be the hero in the stories. So that's kind of, I think I've always been a storyteller. I've always had stories in my head. But as all of us do, I grew up and I got busy. I had my career and I had a family, and I didn't have a lot of time for writing. Although I did continue to write I did all the assignments with my creative writing kids and shared them with the classes. And I kept writing novels. I had 3 of them that I will never ever publish, but they were good practice, and it was a passion for me, and I love to read, but I always had those stories in my head. So 2 things happened kind of simultaneously. One was that I retired, and the other was that my kids grew up and left home. So all of a sudden I had lots of time on my hands, and I joined the Writers Guild. And I just have to say, it was 18 years ago, because that's when I retired, maybe 17 and a half. But right away, I knew I wanted to spend some time writing. And then I sat down and really thought about what I wanted to write. And I wanted to be serious about it and write something that really meant something to me. So my favorite things to read were British mystery series. And I thought that I would like to write a mystery series set in Wales. Well, in the UK somewhere. I didn't pick Wales right away. and other authors have done that. Some of my favorite authors who write British mysteries live in the United States. Deborah Crombie is one of my favorites, and she lives in Texas. Elizabeth George writes the Lindley books, which are super bestsellers, and she lives in Seattle. So, you know, it isn't unheard of for Americans to write British mysteries. So, so I sat down and I thought, what did I want to do? I wanted to make them a little different from others. So I kind of had a fascination with magic realism. And I thought, well, if I pick a setting that is that has a tradition of folklore and mysticism, that I could include just a little bit of that in the books, just to kind of convey the culture and traditions of the places. So I got on Google and I tried to find a good setting somewhere in Britain. I knew I wanted to write it somewhere in Britain, and came up with a list of what they called thin places. Thin meaning that the lines between worlds could be crossed, and you can take that in a number of different ways. And on that site, I found Langanog. Langanog is a tiny little village. Really exists. I've been there, and it's kind of isolated in the Tanat Valley. It's a little thin valley, and it's quite a ways from other places. And it was just the perfect setting for me. It had everything I was looking for. More sheep than people, about a population of 300, very small. And if you drive through the village, you go past the two pubs and you turn at St. Synod's Church, and there's a little 2-mile lane that takes you up the road to Penat Malinga, which is a church. And that church is the oldest Romanesque church in Europe. It's very, very old. It's been restored, and it had a legend associated with it. And that legend is important in my stories. So the legend, if you'll bear with me, I'll try to tell the legend. And in the 6th century, so about 1500 years ago, an Irish princess came to the Tanat Valley, and she was fleeing a marriage that she didn't want. So she settled there, and she lived there pretty peacefully. But one day, a Welsh prince was hunting with his hounds, and he chased a hare right through down the valley, and the hare ran up to her, and she hid it under her cloak. And so he came up to her, and oh, what have I got here? Okay, that's not me. Anyway, he came up to her and challenged her, and she stood there defiant, and she said, no, you know, I'm protecting this hare. And he was so impressed by her compassion and her courage that he gave her sanctuary and told her that he would make the Tanat Valley a place of sanctuary for the rest of her life. And it has been a place of sanctuary for the last 1500 years. So that is important to my story. And there's a counseling center, a small counseling center next to the church. And that's kind of, all those places are real. Everything in my story in the settings is real. So you can get on Google Maps and you can find the two pubs, and you can find the churches and the little roads, the B4391 that they drive all the time. It's all there. It's all real. So anyway, that's why I set my books there. And they do have a little magic realism in them, but I mean it to be a minor part of the story, and I mean them to be serious murder mysteries, not fantasy or anything like that. And there is some romance in there. So anyway, that's kind of my, my setting, my stories, and my characters. I have two characters. I have Bronwyn Bagley, who is a young woman from Langanog. She grew up there, and she lives there still with her parents, and she works at the counseling center, and she kind of feels like she's at a dead end. She doesn't know where her life is going. She doesn't, she just doesn't see a real direction for herself. And she has a great secret in that she believes that she communicates with the beings of Celtic folklore. Now, when she was young, her parents took her for counseling because they thought she had some kind of mental illness, and she isn't sure. So from that experience, she learned to keep that a great secret, and she won't reveal that to anyone, not her family, not her friends, no one. So she kind of stumbling along. And then the second character is Will Cooper, and he's a detective. And his story is he started off in Cardiff working undercover drugs, and he really liked it. It was very fulfilling, and his partner was his best friend, and it was exactly what he wanted out of life. But then his sister died of a drug overdose, and the powers that be decided that he was too compromised to continue with that work. So they gave him an unwilling transfer to North Wales Major Crimes, based in Carnarvon. So now Will is living a 5-hour drive away from his best friend, from his girlfriend, from his family, and he's not happy, but he's trying to find some fulfillment too in solving murders, which is what he does. So anyway, those are my characters. That's my setting. That's my background. And I'm going to pause for a second and see if there's any questions. Any questions?
And if you want to ask a question, be sure to unmute. There you go, Chris.
So, Janet, what kind of research did you do when you decided to have your setting there? And did you interact with the police or whatever is, whatever they're called there?
That is a very good question. I love that question. I think I should have said probably that I have been to Wales 6 times, and I've been to Llanganog. I've been to the pubs. I've been to the church. I've hiked the trails, and so I'm pretty familiar with the place, with the setting, and what it's like there. As far as the police, that was mostly research online, and I have done a lot of research to find out the different layers of police, who's in charge and who's below them and what they're called, and how they qualify for it. Actually, my books, all of them require quite a bit of research. I did not even realize, but things like driving age. How old do you have to be to drive over there? Okay, I think that's something I needed to know. What are the models of cars called? They don't have just a Ford Taurus over there. They have something else. It's maybe the same car, but it's got a different name. So I have found that every little detail I put in has to be researched. So I do spend quite a bit of time doing that. My novels are not fast to write. It takes me a year to do a book and to get it finished and edited and ready to go.
I like the way you refer to the police cars as panda cars.
Yes, they call them panda cars. All the terminology, they have a windscreen, not a windshield, and they have just all kinds of things. They wear jumpers instead of sweaters. There's just all kinds of terminology that you have to make it right. And I'm always looking. I'll start to write a word like living room. Oh, wonder what they call that over there. So then I have to search and see. It's actually called a sitting room over there. So, okay. What's a bedside table called? A nightstand. We call it a nightstand. They call it a bedside table. So lots of different words that I have to look up and know.
So there's lots of accuracy in your books that way.
I try to make them as accurate as I can. Mm-hmm. I try to. So.
And I noticed too in the front you gave a little bit of a guide for pronunciation. So I thought.
Yeah, I didn't do that in the beginning, and then some of my readers were asking, how do you say this? Will you put a pronunciation guide in? So I started adding that at the beginning, just the main words. Welsh is a funny language. The words are huge, long, and no vowels to speak of. And everybody there speaks English as well, but Welsh is the first word you see on road signs and things. You see the Welsh word, and it's so long and big and complicated that you never get to the English word because it's just huge. So fun place. And I have to say it really does have that strong tradition of folklore there. My bed and breakfast hostesses have talked about that. And, if I went to a castle, I went to several castles, but one in particular, I went to the chapel and I heard sounds and I mentioned it to my hostess and she said, oh yes, yes, of course, the ghosts of the early nights hang out there. And I was like, whoa, okay. I did not know, but it's pretty real to those to many of the people, especially not in the cities as much as in the smaller villages. So yeah.
Chris,
I
we
still-
got another question there.
Yeah, do you have any Welsh readers that you are aware of, and have they commented on your stories?
I had a couple, and one just loved them, and he was just fun, and she wanted to tell me all about her family history, which was great. She lived in a haunted house, a haunted cottage, and that was a lot of fun. And then another was the one that made me aware that the cars are different, the car models are different, and I appreciated that input. I really, really appreciate it. And my books do sell in the UK, so I do try to pay attention to those comments, and I can go back and edit my books and resubmit them. So I do make changes, when I hear comments like that. I want to be as accurate as I can be. So I also, when I post the books, when I release them, I tag the village of Langanog, and I do it on Facebook and the pubs. And so, people that are familiar with that area maybe would be drawn to read them. So yeah. My son always asks me, Mom, does yours read your books? And I say, yes, because I sell them in Canada and the UK and Australia, and I don't know those people. So it's kind of fun. It's been fun.
Talking about the language and the words, and Sue typed in the chat something there. So Scrabble would be out.
Yes, I think so. Yeah, you would never have enough letters to spell anything. So,
was there anything about your writing of this series? First of all, did you know you were going to do a whole series?
I planned to do a series. I wanted to do a series. Mm-hmm.
Was there anything particular that you found the most difficult in doing a whole series?
Well, it's hard to think of murders in a nice little village like Langanog. And I think that's my biggest challenge every time is thinking, who was murdered and how did it happen? And a lot of times I really like the suspects and I don't want any of them to be guilty. And sometimes I don't decide who's guilty until I'm almost to the end of the book. So I think thinking of the murders is the hardest part. Carrying the stories from one to the other, I'm always eager to do that because I really like following my two characters and their lives and their personal lives. And I'm excited to see what happens to them next, because I don't always make those choices. Sometimes they just kind of do things that change what's happening. That happened in that book you're reading now. In the last book, I did not know that Bronwyn was going to say something she said until I wrote it down. And then it was like, oh no, now what am I going to do? So it's a lot of fun for me to write them. I love it. My husband and I like to go for road trips. We like to drive and go places, and we're pretty quiet when we're going along. And our joke is, he looks over at me and he says, "What are you thinking about?" And I'm thinking about murder, because I'm always trying to think of that next murder. What's going to happen? So yeah. That's the hardest thing for me, I think, is just coming up with a plot. And then getting it started. The first chapters are always hard to write, and then it starts to roll. So yeah.
So are you saying that you usually don't plot the whole thing out? You just start writing, you're a pantser?
I kind of don't most of the time. I start with an idea and I see where it goes. Yeah, pretty much. Sometimes I know what's going to happen, but not always.
Uh-huh.
No, not always. So and I have to say, I want to say, I forgot to tell you this because I wanted to. My books are about relationships, a lot about relationships, and their relationships between coworkers and with family and extended family, but they're also about relationships in the community and with nature, the natural world.
Oh, yeah.
And I spend a lot of time plotting out those relationships and realizing that the suspects and the victim also had relationships in their lives, and that's an important thing too. So yeah, relationships really matter.
I think it's
And
important in good mystery that especially whoever, was the actual killer, that they not be a cardboard type character, that they have a life. I mean, even in real life, people don't just live for a certain activity. That's it. They come on the scene, they kill somebody, they're done. They came from
Yeah.
somewhere and they had plans and hopes and dreams and all sorts of things. And so, I like books that give us that aspect, because I think that what we read in a good book like that, we can carry over into our real life and
Mhm.
changes our perspective and how we see other people. So I wanted to stop for a second and say hi to, I'm going to read your book cover back there because it's Dwight, right? Right. Welcome to us today, Dwight. And he's called the Right Warrior. And I think you're muted, so whatever you say to me, I won't hear. But you contacted me recently about the guild, and then also, then I invited you to this, right? Because you're a writer. Mhm. Okay, well, maybe we'll get to see you on here one of these days doing your book. Okay. And Tonda's here. I wanted to say hi to Tonda. She's pretty faithful at showing up too. And she's like me. She hasn't really got it out there yet. It's, and I better get a move on, because in another 4, I'll be 80. And if I don't get moving pretty soon, it'll be too, oh no. How old was that old painter when she did her thing?
Old. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't, but pretty old.
Yeah, pretty old. Hi, Steve.
Helen
Okay.
Hogan Santmeyer was 80 when she published her first book.
Who was it?
Helen Hogan Santmeyer. Years ago, she wrote "And Ladies of the Club."
Oh, okay. Well, since I don't recognize her name, I would say that's one of the dangers of waiting until you're too old. But then that's not what's important, right? Our name isn't what's important. What's important is our love for what we're doing and getting it out there in front of people that, might want to. You were going to try to say something, weren't you, Dwight?
Yeah, I just figured out where my microphone control was. Hi, everyone. Yes, I was also going to mention Bob Ross actually started painting after he left the military as a second career, if you will. So it's never too late. That's for sure.
Never too
Well,
late.
That's good. And I'm hoping I'm probably going to make a few changes in my life over the summer. I'm thinking about what I want to do and how I can do it better, so I can get back to some writing. We'll see how that works out. But I appreciate all the support people have given me. And when she said it's been 18 years that the guilt, I went, oh my God, really? I haven't produced it yet. I've probably done a couple thousand book reviews, but I haven't got my own out there. Anyway, where were we? We're supposed to be talking about your book.
Yeah, I just want people, don't be afraid to publish your books. I was, and I didn't. And I had 4 of them completely written and edited and ready before finally COVID hit, and I had a ton of time, and I thought, I'm just going to get brave and do it, because I think it takes a lot of courage to publish a book and put yourself out there and know that people are going to read it and maybe they'll hate it. And so I waited a long time, far too long, to publish a book, and it's been super rewarding and a wonderful thing. So so don't be afraid. If you're a writer, don't be afraid to get your books out there and let them get in people's hands. I know I've got some fellow authors that are listening, and I'm sure that they would agree. It's a very rewarding thing.
Yeah, Dwight?
Yes, I had a question. I'm not sure what the protocol is, but happy Poetry Month to everyone, of course. And James Joyce is one of my favorite poets, and I see you wearing the Ireland shirt, of course. So my question for you is this: do you incorporate, sometimes when you read in a book and they have a poem specifically just for the book, or maybe one of the characters says a poem or writes a poem. Have you done that in your writing? And if so, what was the experience like?
I have not done that, so I can't speak to that experience. But do you? Do you do that?
Yes, I must confess, I'm a Tolkienite. So I'm a huge fan of creating worlds with languages and having characters share poetry and song with other characters within the book. So yes, I am guilty of that.
Okay. Well, mine don't do that, but that's okay.
Not yet.
Maybe
Not yet.
not yet. Maybe you haven't yet introduced a balladeer or anyone into your books.
Not. I have an artist. That's it. I think just an artist. I try to make them as real as I can. The characters, and I do have law enforcement people in my family and extended family, and I know a lot of people that write mysteries, the British mysteries that I love. Their characters are very damaged, and they drink too much, and they don't have families, and they're pretty dark. And in my experience, the people I know that are in law enforcement are all, they don't drink too much, and they have wives and kids, and they coach their kids' sports, and they just do things like that. So that's the way my characters are. They're not too damaged. They have a past, but they're not damaged characters. So just something.
Yeah.
I
That's interesting because when people deal with things like murder and that kind of major crimes like that, assaults and stuff, I can see why a lot of the writers have these people, they turn and become alcoholics or some other things, with some kind of drug and to get away from the memories or not to think about that all the time. But in a small village like this, now over time, your characters probably are going to get a little cynical.
They may. I don't anticipate that, but okay. You never know.
If I was in a small village or in an area and I had to deal with one after another murders, I think I'd get a little. I know on Midsummer Murders, when they have that long series and they go to these small towns, small villages, and it's like, Lord, how many murders are there in these places? And over time, the main characters, they get kind of cynical about things,
I love those shows, and I have to say that there's not just one murder every episode. There's 3 or 4 or 5. Midsummer. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, how many people have actually published one of their books? Show of hands. Herb and Chris and Dwight and Steve. The rest, some of us are readers and some of us haven't got there yet. I know Jay's still working on his, so. But, well, that's pretty good.
Would you like to go through the books and kind of tell you what they're about?
Sure.
I don't know.
Have you got
You had them on the website, but I don't know if everybody read that. So
yeah, I'm gonna do this again.
Oh, you're gonna put them up there. I can hold them up too.
Well, just for a second so people can see as you're talking about. They are from, this is number 1, Churchyard Spill, Beyond the Pale, Gate of Ivory, Gate of Horn, Over the Wales Road, What Lies Beneath the Cairn, and Not Coin But Wrath. And
Yep.
so those are the ones she's going to be talking about. And she may, or Janet, you may show, I don't know if you're planning on holding one up, but go ahead.
Okay, so this is the first one in the churchyard spelled, and it is, well, it's about a murder that happens in the churchyard at Pennant-Malinga. And it's a young woman who was a former classmate of Bronwyn's, and Bronwyn finds her, so she becomes a suspect in the murder. And that's how my two characters meet. She's a suspect and he's the detective, and they're kind of both trying to get information from each other without revealing what they know. So a dance between the two of them as they get to know each other, and she doesn't want him to know where she gets her information, and he can't tell her how the investigation's going. So I had a lot of fun kind of doing that one. So that's the first one. And then Beyond the Pale is about the death of a teenage boy that's the son of local minor royalty. So there's a lot of pressure on them in that case to do it correctly, because the media and the public are very interested in what's happening there. So that's kind of that story. And then I have Gate of Ivory, Gate of Horn, and this one involves a possible serial killer targeting medical professionals. And I think, and this is probably the first book that Will really starts to suspect that Bronwyn is getting clues in some otherworldly way. And the clues she gets come to her in medieval English, and she doesn't always interpret them correctly or apply them correctly to what's happening. So this one's got a lot of misunderstanding in it, and missed relationships. And this one, Over the Wales Road, this is the one that takes you to Ireland. So yeah, there's a murder on a farm in Languedoc of a young woman. And during the course of the investigation, Will was approached by his former partner from the drugs squad. And it turns into a huge undercover drugs operation. And the two of them have to totally go off the grid, and they don't know they know somebody in law enforcement is probably involved. They don't know who. So they just have to disappear, and they can't use their phones, they can't use their cars, they can't use anything that they can be tracked. So they're solving that murder in this one. And the whole case, not just the murder. And this is What Lies Beneath the Cairn is, I thought it was time to come back to Languedoc. So this is a farmer who is murdered, and he's a neighbor of Bronwyn's family. And it's really, this one's a lot about family relationships and how they can, even the closest relationships can be dysfunctional in some ways. Lot to say about that. So, and that was one that I didn't want anybody to be guilty. And I wrote one ending, and then my readers read my print proof copy and said, no, that can't be the way it goes. So I had to and rewrite the whole last probably third of the book to make it work. So, okay. And then this is the newest one, Not Coin But Wrath. And my husband gave me the plot for this one. What happens is there's a murder in Carnarvon, and it's a young boy, and he's lying in an alley, and beside him is a broken walking stick, and then there's another man stumbling around, and he has no memory of what happened, but he's obviously the main suspect, and really for the most part the only suspect. And he's also a former partner of Will's, not the one that's his best friend, but one he's had a lot of conflict with in the past. So if you've read books 1, 4, and then this one, you'll know why it's so important to him to solve this case in this book. And then I have a 7th one that isn't out yet, but it is written. First draft is written, and it's called The Bard in the Blood. And I think it will probably be out late summer or early fall. So
All right. Cool.
there you have it. Those are
Look
the
forward to.
Mackinac murders.
I have a thing in here. Sue has asked, Janet, if you were organizing a literary dinner party, what authors, living or dead, would you invite?
Well, I really like Bernard Cornwell, and he does not write British mysteries. I don't know if you're familiar with the Saxon Chronicles. That's probably my favorite series of books ever in the whole world. And they did make a TV series, a Netflix series, The Last Kingdom. Those are his books. So I love those books. So he would be one I'd love to talk to. And then I have another historical author. Oh, and her name is not here right now. I will think of it in a minute. Okay. She passed away in COVID in the last couple of years. So, I'm sad. Rose, oh, no, that's not her name. It'll come to me. Okay. And then, I think I would like to talk to Deborah Crombie. I'm a friend of hers on Facebook, but I've never met her. And she does write the mystery stories that I really love. I love her stories about Duncan and Gemma. And I would like to talk to her. And I think Peter Robinson, he also passed away last year, but he was one of my very favorites too. Sharon K. Penman is the historical author that I love. And she's kind of what got me going on Wales, because she wrote probably her most famous historical trilogy was about the last princes of Wales, and how they were conquered in the late 1300s. And the first one's called Here Be Dragons. And I was just so into that book, and my copy, I've read it so many times, it's falling apart. And just really, really caught me. And I just loved it. And of course, she was writing them as I was reading them. So I had to look up what happened, historically, because I couldn't wait to find out. And of course, Edward the First just totally wiped out the whole Welsh royal families. I mean, he killed everybody and built massive castles. But the stories are wonderful. And then she's also got one about Richard III called The Sun and Splendor that is totally different than Shakespeare's version of him. And I love that one. And she did wonderful research, just really extensive research on her books. And just loved it. And she inspired me to go to Wales the first time I went. And I actually stayed where Llewellyn the Great had his home. And I chose that specifically because of her books. So I think she would probably be my number one person I would have loved to sit down and talk to. Good question. I love that question. Who else has got a good one?
Allison, thank you.
Well, it's not
I'm
really a
wondering how
question.
much,
Wait a
Oh,
minute.
go ahead.
Allison came first.
I'm wondering how much you build into each subsequent novel, the important details from the previous novel, because in a series, there's always that question of, do you need to read it in sequence, or can you just hop in and whatever book you choose?
Well, Linda has read the last one and not the others, so she could probably answer part of that. I intend for them to go in order, and I do go back and reread at least the previous book before I start writing a new one. Sometimes I reread all of them before I start writing the next one. And I have extensive notes about all the characters, major and minor, the setting. It's really important to me that they stay consistent throughout. So I do spend quite a bit of time making sure that's all carried on correctly. And I also, my husband's one of my readers, my early readers before I published the books. And he's very good at picking up those details. He remembers everything and I don't, but he does. And so he'll go through and he'll say, hey, he's driving the wrong kind of car in this one. or he's drinking the wrong whiskey or whatever. And he's really good at picking those details up for me. And so, but as far as the plots, I think you can just pick them up and read them in any order. But the backstory is pretty important. So I do try to refer to it so that you're not left in the dark if you're starting with book 3 or 4. But yeah, I do go back and kind of recapture a little of it. I don't know. What do you think, Linda? You started with book 6.
Yeah, I've read books where they put in a lot of the backstory, and it's a hard thing to do without it feeling weighted.
Yeah. It's
yeah.
often-
I didn't find myself, so far at least, I haven't found myself missing anything or feeling lost about it. I make assumptions because there's a relationship here in the beginning that you describe, and so I make an assumption that somewhere along the line it happened, they got together. But I know some people feel really left out of a series if they can't get enough of the backstory. And so they will look at it and they'll say, well, I probably have to start with number 1, and this is a lot of reading and I don't know. So I think that may be what Allison was referring to, whether or not you have much backstory in your book. But
I try to refer to it a little bit in each book, but I think the characters would seem fuller to you if you'd followed them through. Although I do understand my books are 300 to 400 pages long, and that's a lot of back reading if you catch up with all of them. So,
yeah, in today's world, it's hard to say whether people could. I wanted to bring up too here that Dwight had put in a statement over here. I think he was going to ask this earlier. Do you want to go ahead and unmute and ask your question, or?
Well, actually, I was having a fan moment because she mentioned, thank you, Janet, for being here. You mentioned Bernard Cornwell, one of my personal favorites. And the way how he took his main character, David, from being a regular foot soldier to rising in ranks and then becoming eventually an old priest, writing about the stories of his youth. Fantastic. And of course, The Last Kingdom is an amazing series on Netflix. I hope they continue it. They did a wonderful job with it. It was fantastic. So I just want to be invited to the dinner party also.
Okay, we've got it set. We just have to get him to come now. He's still alive, so we could.
Yes, please.
I think Uhtred is one of the most interesting characters anybody's ever created, because he is such a microcosm of everything that was going on in Britain in those days. He's Saxon, and he's Viking, and he's Christian, and he's not. And he's such a complex, interesting character. I really admire Bernard Cornwell for creating him and carrying him on through. And of course, he's finished the series now. There are no more books. There is the Netflix movie, which I was disappointed that it's on Netflix, because I was going to go to the theater and see it, but I don't Netflix. I don't have it anymore. So what am I going to do? I'll have to sign up for a month and watch that one show. But yeah, great to meet another fan.
We have a couple of other people that want to have dinner parties too. Steve,
Okay. Who are we?
you want to unmute and say yours, or do you want me to read it?
That's okay. I can do it. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. My dinner party would include Mary Renault, Edith Hamilton, Joseph Campbell, and J.R.R. Tolkien. And then if I could get an ancient Greek translator, it would include Aeschylus, Euripides, Sophocles, and Aristophanes.
I totally forgot Tolkien. Oh my gosh, one of my very favorites ever. I used to teach his novels, and I did classes when I was doing my master's. I did a philosophy and fantasy class, and we did the Lord of the Rings. So, oh my gosh, how could I forget him?
I taught classical mythology over for for decades.
Yep. Yeah.
And Herbert, you have a different, what was yours? You're muted. You need to unmute.
I'm hitting the right button eventually. I'm in more, I don't like too serious of stuff at dinner. That's why I went with Patrick McManus. And my favorite poet, you're gonna love this, of all time is Baxter Black. He's a veterinarian by trade, works in the feedlots in southern Idaho, and he's got the best poetry lines about spring feedlots and going deep sea fishing for a bunch of guys that have never seen the ocean. Especially going out of a town called Ilwaco.
Oh, shoot. Well, I don't know. I Socrates, Shakespeare, and just Walter. I would love to have those three people together for dinner. Real trip. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think they'd take off and start arguing about everything. I don't know. Jess is pretty easygoing. He'd probably be, supportive of it, but I could see Socrates questioning everything that Shakespeare said and saying, now, what are you basing that on? What, So,
How much research did you do here?
yeah, really, really. So, we saw, what was it? We're just started, there's a couple of shows that I thought of while you were talking about yours. One is there's a thing, I think it's on BritBox, but it's one where there's a guy named Michael, I think it's Michael Sheen, and he's Welsh, and he's doing a thing with, oh gosh, Doctor Who, Scott. He's a Scot. I've forgotten his. How can I forget him? It's on the wall over here. What's his name, Martin? He's not hearing me. Anyway, he played Doctor Who, and he's from Scotland. The play. We're watching the two, Michael Sheen and Spade. Yeah, but what's the name? Tennant, David Tennant. Sorry about that. And the two of them are going, and one's got, and because he's supposed to be in his normal life, and they're doing all this over Facebook during the pandemic, and David's got his Scottish brogue, and every once in a while, Michael Sheen, who's Welsh, she's usually talking English, but once in a while he breaks into Welsh, and they're championing. And I'm sitting here going like this, and my God, how do they ever understand what they're talking about? So those language bits, but that's a really funny one. If you want some light moments, Herb, if you get BritBox, you can watch that. And the premise is that they're trying to do some kind of because of pandemic, they want to do a play on stage, but meanwhile, they're trying to rehearse. They're rehearsing over Zoom. So and of course they're getting nowhere. And so but I'm sorry, Janet, you were going to say something else?
I just want to know what it's called.
It's called Stage.
Stage. Write that down.
Yeah. I think you'd love it.
I would.
Yeah.
Good. I watch BritBox and Acorn almost exclusively.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
every day.
We watch a lot of stuff. We watch for different things. Herbert, there you go.
Acorn. Okay, the Broken Back Mystery Series.
Yeah, I love those. They're very good.
Yep.
Yep.
I didn't think they could have hour and a half long, series.
Yeah.
They've gone on for 9 years now.
And Midsummer Murders and Vera, I think those are both hour and a half shows.
Vera's got her new season on now. And Broken Back, I don't, did they add a new series?
I think they have a new season. I think it starts this month sometime.
Yeah. But it's so fun to listen to. What you get from all these different things is the language. I love the Kiwis. I love to listen to them, discuss all the E's, and I tried to memorize the ideas, but you can tell the Aussies from the Kiwis by the different, way that they pronounce some of the different vowels. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of murders going on in that little dinky town.
Yes. It's amazing how much what is that with writers where they want to put the murder in a small village house so that they can have a different pacing, or what do you think? Why would be the reason putting it in a village instead of a
far more charming to have it in a village than it is to have it in a big city. And I think you get more of a flavor of the country in a small area, in a rural area or a small village than you do. The charm, I guess, the charm of the place. And now you can see from all your comments, everybody loves things set in Britain. So that's why I wanted to write my books set in Wales. Yep. And if you go there, it's just so endearing. You just want to, I guess writing my books there keeps me there in my mind. I also use my own photographs for covers. So I kept telling my husband I have to go back. I'm running out of pictures without, so.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, my husband and I read from Bangkok and we love the ones from Bangkok. They're gritty, but they're so good because of the culture.
Yeah.
We've learned so much about, the Buddhist faith, and I don't know, and the way they feel about, because there's so many prostitutes, and the way they feel about them is it's just an acceptable thing. It's just the way it is, and nobody blinks twice. It's like a profession over there, and so that's fascinating. And
I would tell people that it's like a fruit salad. If we were all alike, it would be like having a fruit salad with just apples in it.
yeah,
But it's fun to have a variety in your fruit salad, and it's the same with humanity. It's just amazing to have all these different cultures and different traditions and beliefs and foods and art. Everything is just enriching to us if we let it be.
let's see. Got another. What is the name of the series in Bangkok? Oh dear,
That's for you.
Allison. The series in Bangkok.
You were just talking about it.
I'm sorry, wait a second. Okay, the author is John Burdett, and one of the books is Bangkok 8. And so it's a series that isn't actually, there might have a subtitle that would say what it is, but Burdett is the author. And I do warn you that, yeah, there's a lot of heavy duty stuff in there. But I'm okay with that. Mark's okay with that. So as long as I don't have to be there when the slaughter is taking place, I don't mind reading about the aftermath. Okay, well, we're I don't know. Anybody else have any book countries that you like to read about or that you follow at all? Allison, you
I love Colin Cotterill. His mystery series set in Laos. Just funny.
Yeah.
And very well written. The voices are really nice.
Yeah, I've read Cotterill, and then there's the guy who is the one that writes the I think I need to eat. My brain is leaking and I'm but he wrote the #1 Ladies Detective Agency. and
Mhm.
South Africa.
Okay.
Was it South
Yeah,
Africa? And then he did,
Alexander McCall Smith.
and then he's got one that takes place, I think, in Scotland. Yeah. So, yeah, there's a lot of things out there that we can tap into.
yeah.
That might be something I should put on the book club website that I'm building that I keep adding to. Put on stuff there like focused on different countries, and I could list the different books and series and things that are available. If you're interested in Ireland, you might want to go here. And if you're whatever, now I know that wasn't good, but I tried.
No, that was actually pretty spot on, more or less. But I do agree with the idea of different countries. When we studied poetry, we had a full year of British and American poetry, then another full year of Irish and Welsh and other poetry forms and so forth, you know, the different types of stanzas and, you know, the difference between an Italian sonnet and an English sonnet, for example.
Wow.
You know, so all that stuff is pretty cool, you know, go for it. Because every origin, location, or place has different influences.
Mhm.
You know, one of my favorites, since we have mentioned authors, Stephen R. Donaldson, I believe, who wrote the, I think is the Thomas Covenant series, you know, about the guy who gets into a leprous condition. He gets leprosy, and when he's knocked out or he faints, he ends up in an alternate reality. And of course, adventures continue. You know, it drew a lot on different times of the world and different, you know, aspects of different cultures. You know, so all that is very beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of us like to, if we travel, we like to read books that are set where we're going. And I know I do that. My sister does that. So, you know, have, I guess, a different passion every year because we're going somewhere different and want to read what's set there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you made me think of that.
Yeah, see, I don't travel. I think, what did I do I went to Hawaii once, 50 years ago. I don't travel. And I used to travel for work, flying back and forth to the coast. And then when I was a kid, we traveled everywhere. And I lost my love affair with travel. And, you know, I used to like it, but I'm not fond of it now. First of all, I discovered I can't sleep anywhere but in my own bedroom, you know. And it makes a big difference because if you can't sleep, you can't enjoy where you're at. So
And
bring it to me. In books or movies, although I do understand that there's a difference when you're there. You can hear people talking in the street. You can hear the hubbub. You get a whole different sense of what's going on. But
like seeing it in person, I think.
mm-hmm. Yeah. Well,
That's why I have one Twitter friend. I met her. She's not kind of a minor member of our group, but she was getting her doctorate in Minnesota. She's from Northern England. She was studying dialects and came to Minnesota, and I went, really?
wow.
And now she's back right on the Scottish border, and she's teaching immigrants English. And she was really proud that she had one Arab fella that learned how to pronounce the Scottish accent, you know, where you don't use consonants.
Oh, wow.
And he was so she put it out on Twitter. She wanted us all to write a poem that had to do something about dialects and immigration. Of course, I gave her my limerick. It started out with a young lass from Nantucket, but anyhow.
No.
Well, I changed it a little. He went to Spain, but that was a pain. So he said,
well, we're 3:00. Any last comments, questions, or whatever? You could all maybe unmute at will. And
is self-promo up?
pardon?
Is self-promo up now?
Oh,
Promotion.
Oh, I
Check
guess so.
this out.
That's the
Okay.
other organization. You know, I've been following that.
And I
That's
got the first copy of this today too.
Okay.
Well, that has to do with the having a herd try to design something when you're trying to design by mass input, it doesn't work. So
Mhm.
I made those as protest.
Yeah, committee invite ideas and community, you know, but it makes everything take longer, a lot more work. So if you have the time and if you purposely wish to have people feel connected to the process and feel ownership to the product at the end, then a committee is great for that. But otherwise, if you don't have time, don't do committee.
Not if you want it done in less than a year.
Mhm, mhm. But I thought it turned out well, Herbert. I think that it.
Well, this was actually the discarded design. My lady that does my book covers and stuff made it. She's a guy sitting in a boat with a typewriter.
Right. And that's not the one they went with.
No, that's not the one. They
Oh.
insisted it had to be our logo. All I wanted was a Times New Roman banner that says Sandpoint Riders on the Lake because we were starting to do craft shows.
Uh-huh.
Oh, that turned into a huge thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
So I got out of the banner business, and it went downhill from there.
I leave all of the outside book sale organization, all that kind of stuff to SAS and you guys. I figured you got it covered. And, you know, anybody can participate. If you want to fork over a couple of bucks, you can, you know, pitch in or do some volunteer time or what have you. So most writing organizations are pretty friendly and willing to allow people to participate. But
Yep.
and in the past, trust me, I have solicited, if people did want to do something special like that, I have solicited for volunteers to lead projects. And my reaction has been exactly zero. And so my assumption is if nobody wants to volunteer to lead it or do it, then it's not worth doing.
That's why we appreciate you so much, Linda. because You
Thanks, Janet. Well, I
A
got
long for us.
That's why I'm just looking at, because I kept thinking, well, maybe I could do this and maybe I could, and pretty soon I'm going, we need a book club for this, because it's not, and then I started thinking, what the heck are you doing, woman? You can't do this. Just back off. So, anyway. But I'm enjoying life, and I guess that's what matters most anyway.
You should be happy.
Yeah. Oh, I'm very happy. I just
Okay.
don't want to become so scattered that I can't do a quality job for anything like this. And
Well, you do a great job.
I will think.
Thank you for having me today. I appreciate that. And
Well, you're very sweet to say that. I appreciate it.
I have a lot of fun books. I hope people enjoy reading them. So
And they're all down at her prices are quite low, folks. So trust me, you're not, they're like what, $16, I think.
yeah.
And the time you get your 15% discount for book club, just ask for that. And
Oh, autographed too.
very reasonable. Anything that you're reading for group, that's related to our writer stuff, just tell them it's a book club one for the guild. Yeah, you can, because I don't think we actually put books in the store if we can't give discounts. So,
Mhm.
Sue, you're lit up. Just background noise.
Yes, it's background noise. I'm sorry.
Well, I feel really good today because they've been replacing telephone poles in my neighborhood and blocking off the street. And for some reason today, right now, it's all blocked off, but there's no noise. And I'm grateful. I can't believe it. So, thanks to Providence for that one.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, you can stay as long as you want, but I certainly won't be, put off if you, oh, there's Kathy. Just in time to miss it. Sorry, Kathy, we're just breaking up, but glad you're here. Bye, Chris. Bye, Dwight. Da, da.
Bye, people.
Bye, Steve. Bye. Oh, Jay, you're still here. Okay. Anybody wants to stick around and chat with me, you're welcome to.
Okay.
And don't forget to show up for our Zoom meeting this Saturday morning
Yeah, if you want to go to the one
in Sandpoint.
point.
Just send me an email, and I'll send you a Zoom invite. If it's from 9:30 to noon on Saturday.
Want to?
We're a critique group, Flash Club, and I know we have at least 3-4 submissions by now, but yeah.
Yeah.
Did I get the wrong time?
Yeah, it's was 2 o'clock. Kathy.
Keep thinking you're in the west, you're in the California coast time. No,
2 o'clock. It's now 3.
it's 4 my time. Okay. It
4
was
o'clock where you
2 o'clock California time.
2 o'clock. Well, isn't California on the normal Pacific? Everybody, all the things I go to as our time.
But it's not on my time because I live in Western Montana.
Oh, okay.
That's why I was confused. Sorry.
No, you're in Mountain Time. We're in West
Yeah,
Time. Yeah.
I knew you were a different time, but I wasn't quite sure, so I just looked at what the calendar told me it was, and my calendar translated it to 4 for some weird reason. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, we have there's 3 book clubs. This one and the afternoon club meets at 2, and then the mystery group meets at noon, and it's always Pacific time. So it would be 3 o'clock and 1 o'clock your time.
Unless you live in Idaho, and then it's anybody's guess with 2 or 3 time zones in the one state.
Really?
I live really close to the Idaho border. Don't remind me, it's so confusing.
Yeah, we're only about 30 miles from Coeur d'Alene, which is
Oh, right, you're in Spokane, so you're over by the, you are 5 mountain passes away from me, because I've driven.
right. Mhm.
I'm in Sandpoint. There's no mountain passes if you follow the Clark Fork River. Which is why we know the Indians were screwing with Lewis and Clark. They could have just told them to go a half a day back downstream, and they could have taken the Flathead and the Clark Fork River right out to the Pacific coast. But oh no, let's pick the senile old guy and send him over the tallest mountain range around.
Wow.
You might have one of the scenic view.
I'm gonna have to go, Linda, but thank you again for having me
Well, thank
today.
you, Janet. I appreciate it.
I'll try to get the time right. We're supposed to be getting rid of, I'm not changing my time anymore anyway, by the way. The next time this thing happens, which is November, I'm not doing it. That's all, so.
As long as you can mark your difference, so you can get your clock.
We'll see. All righty. See you guys next time you send me an email, and I'll
Okay,
try to get
Kathy, will do.
the time right.
I'll put
Sorry
in there,
about
Kathy, pay attention to the time.
it. Thank you. Yes, please do that, so I will not miss you
There
guys.
you go. All
Thank
right.
you for your patience.
Jay,
We're gonna be on for 2 weeks. No?
how is your stuff being done, Rhonda? You're muted, but you're just gonna stay that way, right?
Maybe.
And Dwight, yeah, because the top of your title line on your book is cut off. Yeah, his book is called Pivot.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. And I just want to say, that's the only reason I'm here still, besides a great company, of course. This is a long time overdue thanks to our mutual friend Sharma Shields over at the library.
Uh-huh.
So her and I met in November, and she already told me about yourself, the bookstore.
Oh, that's
We've been
wonderful.
we've been so busy with life and everything, and of course, winter was so fun,
Yeah.
you know.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm glad to finally meet you all and be part of this. And thank you so much for doing this. This is so needed. You don't understand. We need more of these Zooms and conversations with authors and each other, of course, and writers and readers.
Yeah. That way we can have people come from different places and get together. Yeah, well, we look forward to the future and more of it.
No,
More
definitely.
future.
I
I want
I
more
definitely,
future.
I definitely want to take you up on being a presenter one of these times. You know,
Okay.
I'm a huge fan of writing and reading and works and so forth. I'm looking at the final manuscript right now for our poetry book, our third poetry book, which comes out this month. You know, it's National Poetry Month. You know, the problem was trying to keep poems out, you know, but we had so many to put in. And yeah, I'm a huge fan also of the libraries because I was able to do my audiobook for Pivot at the library, the central library, the one downtown, you know, and great facility, great setup, the audio engineers and so forth. You know, of course, it's a public service, so it's free. But we spent a couple of hours, and now my book sounds amazing, the audiobook, you know. So I'm a huge proponent of that and what they do over there.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah, I look forward to hearing some more about your work and what your experience is. We're always looking for things, topics that we can cover in the guild meetings too. And I don't know, everyone's not always available to come. It's 7 p.m. on the third Wednesday. And that one is more of a, it's not a business meeting, but it's more of a serious, well, it's not a serious. What should I say, folks? It's got a learning topic associated with it. The best I can. So we'll probably see all of you some more in the future. Look forward to it. Anything else anybody wants to ask, say, shout about, get excited about? No? We're done? Okay.
Hopefully.
Hey, hey, Linda,
Yo,
I wasn't sure if you got my email I sent you on my revised prologue I did on book one.
didn't I respond to that? I thought I
I
responded.
sent you an email. I sent it from my other email from my couple weeks ago.
Yeah. I'll go back and look because I thought, I mean, it's easily lost. You wouldn't believe how many emails I get. That's
Oh,
why
okay.
I seriously
Yeah, I just-
step back on everything and stop getting them, and then just get it down to the local authors and a few, like there's 2 or 3 major website people that I like to keep tabs on.
Oh, okay.
AutoCrit and the Authors Guild and
Oh, okay.
Reedsy, but I'm trying to cut everything else, and so maybe I won't lose you that. But I'll go look, Jay. 'Cause
Yeah,
I
it was just
I responded to everybody's stuff, but maybe.
I just wanted to say, you know, it was just kind of where I've gone so far. Like I told you, I'm constantly learning, listening to all the other writers and
Well, I
how,
remember reading it. I
yeah,
remember
and studying
I just
and
thought,
and we got my Denise. Denise been helping me out, and then the book club, the clubs that we used to meet before, finally got to the point. I think I can finally write.
well, you're
Finally.
able to write, but we always can improve it, right, Tonda?
Yeah. My style was very bad, and everyone was struggling with me because I was so passive voice, and I was telling everything rather than showing. I think I've finally gotten over that hump.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to show you.
Yeah, I think so. I think, and that's why I thought I had responded, because I thought I was talking to that idea that you mentioned when you sent it. But like I said, I'll go back and look. Something could have happened when I sent it too. So.
Oh, okay.
Well, anyway, let's.
I just had a quick question for you,
Oh, sure.
Linda. One, do you have, I don't know if you do it on the website or whatever, to request to see if anybody wants to beta read at all for,
Yeah, I do have a want ads page on there. It's just the thing, I call it want ads, but it's people that, but it doesn't get a lot of action. And so far, it takes time to get people to count on something like a new website. So what I can do though is when I do send out my next bulletin, I could include, so go ahead and email me just a little thing that says this is what you're hoping to get out to people. Just what, wanting to see if anybody's willing to do that.
I just want to try to get more active in seeing if I can get a beta reader to
Yeah.
actually read my story so I can try to get it finished. I've
Yeah.
edited several times, so it's pretty much ready, but I would like to pay for an editor, but I kind of want to have beta readers read it a little first before I spend the money on an editor. So
you had any readers? I mean,
I have one gal who's kind of reading it, but it might take her forever to get back to me. And everybody else who's said they would read it has not got back to me. So
you have a similar problem to what Jay had. You're writing huge books.
Yeah, it's 84,700, something like that is what the count is on that story. So
kind of punching for people. I'm trying to think if this is something that wish I could figure out a way. See, that's the problem is we are at a point in history when there's so much data and so much available to people that it's overwhelming. So how do you compete? How do you cut through and get to an audience with information and say this and this?
Yeah.
So it might be something that we would want to tag on to the end of for just 5 minutes or so of the local book group or, local author book group, or we might want to, have a 5 or 10 minute little tag on to the guild meeting. And so people can bring up their work.
Yeah, and hopefully I'll be able to make the guild meeting, but I happen to be on jury duty. So I don't know if that's gonna interfere with my ability to join the meeting or not.
Yeah, because if you've done that all day, going to anything at 7 o'clock is gonna feel like you're poop. And
Yeah. Well, and the last time I was on jury duty, I ended up on a jury and it held me for 5 weeks. So I'm hoping that's not gonna happen this time.
Jay
But
has something to help you, I think.
Wanda, what do you read? What do you write?
fantasy, high fantasy. Mostly kind of YA, but it's kind of going into adult, so it's right on the line there.
Exactly what I'm doing. I have the same problem with you, but I do beta read. I will beta read your stuff.
Okay.
I do high fantasy young adult. It's kind of borderline too a little bit, but it's young adult. With people are like in their late teens and 20s.
I didn't want to speak up for him, but I was kind of hoping that it was rather serendipitous here that.
Well, if I can get your email, I can send off. I always send a test email before I send the book so that I know I'm sending it to the right place. So I had a gal say sure, and she gave me her email, and I sent a test email, and then I sent another test email, and I haven't heard back from her. So I'm either got the email wrong or
I've had that with one of the people who wanted to supposedly write with my stuff. She gave me like 3 emails. I tried every one of them. No luck.
Honda, are you able to see can you click?
I can see the chat if he wants to put it in the chat, and then I can copy it from there. Yeah.
There you go. Yes.
Yep, there it is.
All righty.
We'll check and make sure that I typed it right. So yeah. You do typos, but yeah, that's correct. Yeah, I would love to do that. Denise is my other. We kind of share back and forth with Denise. but she's working, so she doesn't send me as much as I could actually review. So I do have more time. I
Okay.
am retired.
There you go.
And my warning to you though is that I am a engineer by trade, and so everything I do is by logic. And so when I do with Denise, she's writing a kind of like a world that's post-apocalyptic. So I'm actually reviewing her stuff, giving her scientific corrections, because that's where my background is. I'm heavy in science.
Mhm.
But I have been reading fantasy since Tolkien. When I first read Tolkien back in '79. So I enjoy fantasy. So, and I have and that's what I've been working for since 2016, trying to learn how to write. And my story's been slowly growing, and then rewriting and rewriting and rewriting. And I'm finally getting there to the point. So I think I could help you a little bit. I'm not an expert. I'm not a school teacher like Denise is, where she catches all that stuff. But I am willing to do it. And my books are bigger than yours. My first one is at 137,000.
Well, actually, my first book I'm still working on, I intended it to be the 3-book series. I'm still working on the book 1 premise, and I'm about 4 books worth of material. And I'm not to the end yet. So
It doesn't need to be.
I write a lot. I just haven't got to the end yet. And now I have family members who are ribbing me and telling me I really need to finish it and publish it. So
And I think,
I write big
and I
usually.
think Pond is probably more interested in a general reaction to the story, and whether you get lost or whether you,
Yeah,
you know,
I kind of I kind of want to know some of the big thing is I've had a lot of people read the beginning and they've all said it was good, but they've never got any farther. Of course, I've changed it several times because I've made modifications based on some input I've had there, but I've never had somebody read it all the way through to the end. And well, I've had one person, it was a relative. So I want to know, because of the way the ending is on it, if it feels good. I want to know if the pacing is too fast or too slow. I kind of want to have a general idea about its pacing, and if it keeps your interest, if there's a spot that you get confused, simple things like that. Just it's more of the storyline itself. Did it carry you all the way through, and did you enjoy the storyline? Obviously, if you catch a little, well, you said the there, so things like that. That's great, but because I'm not an English major by any stretch of the imagination. As a matter of fact, my English teacher told me to get the heck out of her class or she'd fail me. I never thought I'd be writing stories.
Oh,
So-
same here. I always tell people I are an engineer. I are smart. That's the old thing from college days.
I is artist. So, yeah.
My mother was an English teacher, but I never really picked it up. I was always technical. So
Yeah,
my writing style before was all
drawing and things like that are was my original, kind of my forte. That's what I've always kind of done. I mean, just things, those are just like things I doodle. That's what I call a doodle.
I actually like sketches like that. Once people start coloring them in, they get things wrong, but it seems like you see so much detail with the pencil sketches. I like that.
Yeah, well, graphite is my favorite, but I paint and I do a lot of different kinds of art. So just a lot of different mediums. But graphite's one of my favorites, so that's what I gravitate towards. I sent an email off, just the test email off to you. So
I'll have to open it up there to.
I just wanted you to know. So I did send it.
Okay, I'll reply back right back.
Okay. And then I'll bring it up and I can send that off to you. Is a Word document okay, or would you prefer it in a PDF?
Word is great. I
Okay.
do everything in Word.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's what I wrote it in, but I can make a PDF if I need to, so.
I started off in WordPerfect back in the 90s, and then in the late 90s, I went to Word.
Yeah.
Yeah, as an engineer, we type up a lot of reports. But of course, it's not writing for books. It's a totally different type of writing.
Yeah.
So
Technical writing is definitely different than creative writing.
Back in the day, WordPerfect was considered a much better program than Word. And then Microsoft bought WordPerfect so it could take and integrate a bunch of the features that WordPerfect had and put them in Word. And then at some point it stopped producing WordPerfect. So it just scavenged and from this competitive product and put it in its own.
Story of Microsoft.
Yes. Good business, but you know, I missed WordPerfect till a few years passed.
Yeah,
I gotta hang up, kids. So
that's
All right,
fine.
well, thank you. So hopefully I'll see you at the meeting, you know, the next one, but you know, we'll see. We'll see what.
well,
Yeah.
I wish you all well. Yep.
Okay,
All right.
great. I'll get out of here.
All right, thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Night.